Good morning again, everyone, and welcome to BusinessWise Insiders. I'm just going to quickly review how we expect everything to proceed this morning so you have an idea of what to expect. In a moment, I'll start the presentation, during which I'll keep everyone on mute just to minimize inadvertent disruptions. The presentation will run for about 20 minutes, after which, as I mentioned, we'll open the discussion up and you'll get a chance to say hello, introduce yourselves, ask any questions, share ideas about today's topic or any other business development challenge or priority that's on your mind as we close out 2021. And if you do have questions during the presentation, you can ask them in the chat window or jot them down and ask them later in the breakout discussion. And then finally, I'll periodically be putting a few questions to the group using Zoom's polling feature. It's all totally anonymous and there's no pressure to answer, but it's a great way to get a sense of everyone's thoughts about some of the questions and materials we'll be covering today, and something we may touch on later in the breakout discussion. So with that, let's dive into today's topic. I'm actually going to go ahead and launch a poll question now. So the question I want to put to you was, out of the following challenges, which do you consider the biggest drag on sales success? And I fully realize that you may know where we're headed with this based on the invitation that you all received, but it's a good way of performing a quick check on your prospecting mindset and will hopefully help put today's topic into a little more context. And while these challenges are all obviously things that can hold back your new business development, in our experience, only one is really a make or break factor. And it's the topic of today's presentation. And that is to zoom in on your best prospects and create an ideal 2022 target market. That's because even if you come up with the perfect solution for reaching your prospects, even if you know exactly what to say to them and have all the best tools in the world, if you're not targeting the right prospects to begin with, you're never going to be as successful. Some of you may have heard us talk about the 40-40-20 rule before. It's something we talk a lot about at BusinessWise in relation to all aspects of sales and lead generation. And it helps us stay focused on the big picture, which is really what today's presentation is about. And it's the idea that the vast majority of lead gen success comes from two basic concepts: your list and your offer. And so often sales reps are focused on the other 20%, what you say to prospects, and to a lesser extent, the offer. And they kind of forget about the importance of the list, or they overlook how important it is to invest time in crafting a list that's really focused. And we're using the word list here because it's the most basic way to describe what we're talking about. But it's not really the best term. List sounds static, like something you put together once and then you work to cross items off and you're done. But it doesn't work that way in business development, where the landscape is constantly changing and where repetition is key. Most of you are BusinessWise clients, so you already know that we use the term target market to describe that fluid list of prospects in your target audience that serves as the foundation of your new business development strategy. And the concept is pretty simple when you think about it. When your target market is filled with your best prospects, that means you spend more time on prospects likely to buy. In turn, your success rate goes up and you can sell more stuff in the same amount of time. And one final point to make before we get into some of the details of why and how to build a focused target market. Target markets are especially important with outbound or direct sales and marketing, like email prospecting, cold calling, physical direct mail, where you identify prospects who may not already know about you and reach out to them directly. In contrast, general marketing, like an ad on a website or a billboard, involves less targeting, is less measurable, and provides a less focused call to action. And our primary focus at BusinessWise is that first category. Deb, did you want to add anything before I dove into the specifics?
I just wanted to say that in my experience, that lack of attention to one's target market is probably one of the most common mistakes that we see. And it's not just for BusinessWise subscribers, but I will tell you that just in the last week alone, I've received 7 prospecting email messages that want me to look at their lead generation offerings. And all I think about is, why are you targeting your competitors? And so that's just one little example of a way that people can forget to hone in on their target market. Sending your marketing materials or calling your competitors is not the best way to fill your prospecting funnel. And that's just one little example of how not spending time focusing on your best prospects can be disastrous.
Thanks, Deb. That's a great example. So we've got a 4-step process for crafting an ideal target market. And the first step is to zoom in rather than out. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to illustrate in this next slide. So I'm going to launch another poll question here. Which business development animal are you? So you've got 4 choices: an elephant, target market is huge; a mouse, target market is small; the pig, target market, I'll eat anything; and the owl, with the target market that's clear and focused. A few questions to consider as you think through this. Which is the best approach and why? What are some positives and negatives about each approach? How big a target market do you think you could successfully manage, given the need to touch a prospect multiple times to close out a sale? And one point of the slide is to emphasize that there are 2 ways to think about target markets. One is how big or small they are, and another is how focused or unfocused they are. It's possible to have a large target market that's very focused on your best prospects, or a smaller target market that could stand to be refined even further. It all depends on your specific goals and circumstances. But focus is always important, and we have a way we like to illustrate that concept at BusinessWise. Back when in-person gatherings were common, some of you may recall that we had a jar of jelly beans on every conference table in our offices. And here's the point: if you only like red and blue jelly beans, are you better off with a bigger jar or with separate jars that let you pick the color? Using smaller jars might take a little more time at the outset, since you have to sort them. And there may even be fewer total red and blue jelly beans in those small jars than in the big jar, but it saves you a lot of time and effort in the long run to focus on the individual jars. Time is one thing you can never get more of, so you don't want to waste it on those yellow, purple, or green jelly beans. And again, the key points here are to maximize your valuable time, to understand that it's not just about the difference between prospects who might buy from you and prospects who will never buy from you. There's also a difference between a good prospect and a great prospect that can help bring even more focus to your target market. And finally, that the end result of all this is that stronger leads lead to more appointments and sales in the same amount of time that you would be generating those leads with a larger unfocused target market. I just want to offer one quick example about how the principles of successful target marketing work to help everyone think through the topic. Regular insiders, attendees have heard us talk about automated email prospecting before. It's a great tool for using email to reach prospects on an automated basis, so sales reps can generate a steady stream of replies and leads to their inbox. And here's how it works. You send a campaign of sequenced emails. So here it's messages 1 through 3, gradually to your prospects over time. So every day, a few dozen of message 1s go out to new prospects. That kickstarts a sequence where they receive message 2 a few days later, message 3 a few days after that. Anytime a prospect replies, you get a lead in your inbox, and then they're removed from receiving any future emails in the sequence. So let's say you want each campaign to run for a few months, so you can touch each prospect on your list up to 3 times over the course of a span of, say, 3 or 4 months. For that to be possible, your target market needs to be about 5,000 prospects. So think about it. How do you decide which 5,000 prospects to put on your list? What criteria do you use for choosing? Which prospects don't make the cut? And if you don't have 5,000 excellent prospects, how do you fill out the rest of your list? And we're going to come back to this example a few times in the presentation to illustrate other key points, but just keep this in the back of your mind as you think about the outlines of a target market and how to make decisions to fill it. Deb, did you have anything to add here?
Well, just a little side comment about automated email prospecting. I just want to mention to everyone that if you're sending emails from your Constant Contact or your HubSpot or even business-wise drip marketing, you're doing email marketing, but you're not doing automated email prospecting. If you're not sending these emails from your Office 365 or your Gmail account. And we have found that when your goal is sales prospecting rather than marketing per se, if your goal is to get more appointments, that automated email prospecting or AEP is a fantastic tool to have in your toolbox. And we're not going to go into it much more today, but please feel free to ask us more about it. And it occurred to me that the AEP acronym, rather than just automated email prospecting, should be absolutely essential prospecting, because it makes a big difference in your new business development results.
That's definitely true. And for the purposes of today's presentation, it also, as you'll see, provides a very useful example of how target marketing is so important in different contexts and different prospecting channels. So with that, let's get into how to start building your list or target market. So oddly enough, our process starts with the prospects who have already bought from you, which are your current clients. And we're obviously not talking about trying to set appointments with your current clients. So you might be asking, why is this the best place to start? And it's because your current client list presents the clearest and most readily available picture of the kinds of businesses that are likely to buy from you, because they already did. So the next step is to find companies that are similar to your current clients, and that's where the basic demographics come in. Some of them are pretty obvious, industry or size. Some others you might not immediately think about are structure, whether it's a public versus private business, or reach, local versus national. And there's no right or wrong answer. It all depends on your business targets and client list. And especially if you're using the right targeting tools, demographics can reveal large groups of prospects immediately that you didn't know you had. And some key points thinking about this segment is to view and use your current client list as a roadmap, to again remember that some client relationships are better than others. Not every client is one that you want to replicate, or there are certain clients that you may want to replicate more than others. So to look to those excellent client relationships to provide the clearest map to your best prospects, and that you don't have to guess. You can always ask a client why they bought from you. Deborah, anything here?
So if any of y'all want to tell us why you bought from us, please put it in the chat box.
So we just talked about asking your current clients why they bought from you. And that's a good segue into this next section, which is about taking those starter demographics and then filtering for your ideal prospects. And that's because not every contact in your target demographic is necessarily a good prospect for you. So you'll want to qualify your prospects by applying additional filters to hone your list. So here you can see how the strength of your list improves the further that you refine and qualify. On the left, you have a target market of everyone, which is very weak and watered down. Client demographics bring more focus and strength, but additional qualifications can make it even more powerful. And one way to determine how to further qualify is to go back to the concept of asking your current clients why they bought from you. So here are 5 starter questions you can ask to uncover why clients choose to do business with you in the first place. Name 3 problems or challenges you face that we've helped you address. How long were you actively looking for a solution? As you considered investing, what was appealing to you about our product or service? With other options available to you, why did you choose to invest with us rather than our competitors? And was there one thing or moment that made you decide to invest? And obviously, these are all getting at the same question, but sometimes asking it in different ways can reveal powerful information. So identifying these psychographic or intangible details takes a lot of work, since you can really only learn by asking. but it has a ton of benefits. Number one, it's great for building more focused target markets. It also helps you identify what to home in on in your meetings or pitch with prospects or on your website homepage. And it's an opportunity to tend to another group of prospects, which is your current clients, who will ultimately decide whether to buy from you again by renewing. And just to hammer home some key points, your target market isn't really just a list of prospects. It's a set of criteria, tangible demographic criteria and intangible psychographic criteria that you use to build and refine the list that you're using at any given moment. And when identifying those criteria, always keep in mind that primary goal, which is to maximize time with your strongest prospects. And one final point about going beyond demographics provided by your current client list is that doing so can help you expand your client base beyond the categories that you already serve. So if you really want to grow, you might need to sell to more different kinds of clients than those on your current client list. So digging into the firmographic and psychographic criteria is a great way to identify new categories of high-value prospects. And then coming back to this example of automated email prospecting, I wanted to touch on a couple of different points. The first is email prospecting can help us think about the idea of how to use your list strategically to maximize time with your absolute best prospects. So let's say you have your AEP campaign running here on the left with your target market of 5,000 prospects that we talked about earlier. That list size is set. You filled it with your 5,000 best prospects, maybe from demographic criteria. Now that you know you're reaching those 5,000 best prospects with an automated campaign that requires no ongoing effort from you other than fielding replies, you can use your cold call time to focus on a much tighter set of your absolute best prospects. So if 3 to 7 dial attempts is what you need to reach a prospect, when you're working with a target market of several thousand, you can see how many calls that would take. Rather than calling 5,000 prospects once, why not call 100 prospects 10 times? You've effectively created 2 target markets tailored to your prospecting method. And the second point here is that you can use your target market to actually help craft the message that you're delivering. All that demographic and psychographic info that you've gathered can be infused into your email campaign or your cold call scripts to ensure that they resonate with the specific prospects in your audience. And we have several email prospecting clients who have a standard sort of generic target market of 5,000, but then want a more targeted campaign to increase responses from a subset of that target market. And so then we craft those messages accordingly to emphasize the demographic and psychographic characteristics of that group. So you can see how target market affects message and makes it more powerful. Deborah, anything to add to this?
I know that we live in a world where quick and easy are the operational important things. And I wish I could tell you that target marketing or reaching your best prospects was quick and easy, but it's not. At the same time, it's critical to have an opportunity to make those new connections so that we can all get new clients. And if you pay attention to these processes, it really will make a difference in your results next year.
So that brings us just to the final step in the process, which is really just a next step. And that's the need to constantly sharpen your target market and repeat this whole process. Again, your target market isn't a one-time list. It has a life cycle. Businesses come and go. So even if the criteria doesn't change, you need to constantly cycle new prospects in and old prospects out. But the criteria can and should change too. You'll want to constantly update them based on the trends you see or find. That's something that's been especially important over the past couple of years with how much the economy has shifted in so many ways. And here are a few tips for ways you can think about refreshing that target market. Whenever your client list changes, so does your target market roadmap. So always look for demographic and psychographic changes to your client list that you can use to help clarify the roadmap to your prospects. Number 2, oftentimes the results of your business development efforts deliver a verdict on the strengths and weaknesses of your target market, especially when the results aren't necessarily what you expected. So if you're getting bad results, maybe think about refreshing the criteria in ways that are informed by what you're seeing. And again, when the economic landscape changes, even for the worse, new markets and opportunities will inevitably arise, and those should definitely be incorporated into the way you think about your target market criteria. And then finally, to return to our AEP prospecting example one last time, of course, each campaign eventually runs its course. And so before you launch your next campaign, you have a new target market puzzle to solve. How many new slots do you have to fill left by prospects who became clients or replied or unsubscribed, et cetera? Did the results match your expectations? Any changes to the landscape since your last campaign began? Are there new firms, new markets, or opportunities you want to touch? So you can see how this example forces you to think about your target market on a regular basis and why it's so important to keep all of those steps in the front of your mind. So we're almost through the presentation, but before we finish and open it up for discussion, I wanted to return for a second to the 40-40-20 rule and encourage people to use it as a frame for how you think about new business development heading into 2022. Cold prospecting is really hard, and it's getting harder. And you're likely to have more than one moment in the next year where you have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing really working? Should I change my approach? How, and will it really matter? And when you inevitably have one of those moments, I would strongly encourage you to remember 40-40-20. And I've titled the three pieces here, list, offer, and other, but another way to think about it is the who, the what, and the how. And whenever you have a crisis of confidence, don't dwell too much on the how. Instead, think hard about the who and the what. Lean on us at BusinessWise to help you with the who. We have a group of really talented target marketing experts, and we can help you craft and refine your list. And then let's work together to find the what that gives the prospect on that list a reason to act, engage, and meet with you. Deb, any final thoughts?
I think you've said it all, Sam.
Great. Well, thanks everyone again for attending today. We're going to open